Hello everybody, welcome back after lunch. We're going to re-energize you now with a look forward at how we can embrace AI, artificial intelligence. I've heard you all talking about it over the last day and a half. We want it to fuel positive growth, but we also want to avoid the hype and we want to sidestep expensive mistakes because let's face it, nobody can afford it. It's a big ask, but I've got three pioneers here who are going to be our guides for the next 40 minutes or so. No pressure, gentlemen. I'm very pleased to introduce Matt Clifford, the chair and co-founder of Entrepreneurs First and also the chair of ARIA, which is the UK's moonshot research agency. They do some incredibly weird stuff, I think it's fair to say. If you haven't checked their work out, you really should. Next to him is Kian Katanforoosh, who's the CEO and founder of Workera, the skills verification platform. And finally, we have Fernando Lucini, who is Global Lead Data Science and Machine Learning Engineering at Accenture. Now let's dive straight in, I think, with the 3 golden rules, according to you, of harnessing AI. And I want to base this on your own experiences of talking to CEOs and staff, because I know that you will do a lot of that. Matt, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think one thing that I would say is that we're in this difficult moment where the capabilities that we have from today's AI are extraordinary. The adoption that we have is much more limited. I spent the last year in government writing the UK's AI strategy and then trying to implement it. And one observation I have about government adoption of AI is if you effectively put legal and compliance in charge of your AI rollout, you will find that most of it is illegal. There may be a broader moral there about UK economic growth and culture, but I think in my conversations with private sector CEOs and CIOs, I think you see something similar, which is that actually nearly all the stuff that's actually happening in AI today is still bottom up. It's sort of this permissionlessness where individual engineers, individual users are finding ways to actually exploit the opportunity. The top down, I would say in general, at least in this country, is still mired in anxiety, I think, both about whether it can deliver, but I would say even more so by the rules, the regulations, and the sort of culture of risk-taking that surrounds it.
Tim Davie, who's my boss at the BBC, perhaps you could not listen to this bit. I was in a meeting recently where we were all talking about how the BBC is going to use AI, and we were given a list of tools that we absolutely shouldn't be using, and one of them I'd been using since 2019 quite happily, so I sat there discreetly trying to delete it, but also thinking, you're right, I didn't mean to be, but I was obviously ahead of the curve in terms of just getting on with it before anyone told me what to do. That's quite common, I guess. Kian, what's your thought?
A few things. I think first, go into AI with the mindset that you're way behind everybody else, because it's probably true. And we verify AI readiness across a lot of companies, and I can tell you how large the gap is between some of the frontier labs versus the rest of the world. It's just mind-blowing how they talk about AI, how they use AI. It's completely different than you think. The other aspect is to go to what you were saying about regulations, you have probably regulated industries like banking on the one end of the spectrum, and on the other hand, you have the startup community. And it's important to approach AI thinking, what is the safe thing we can do where we can break things as we want and learn through this experience. And I remember a story from Google Brain, and my graduate school advisor was one of the founding lead of Google Brain, where one of the first Google Brain initiatives that sort of spearheaded the use of neural networks and AI within the company was this algorithm that was finding cats on YouTube videos. And then you think about it, it's kind of silly to look for cats in YouTube videos. The objective of the project was not so much to make money or have a massive impact. It was to show how powerful the technology was and actually create adoption across the entire Google workforce. And everybody started talking about you. So we find 3 cats in this video. It's kind of crazy. And I think those are the examples of safe projects that allow a company to approach AI safely and still get the benefits of higher adoption.
No. Fernando, you agree with that?
Super interesting. No, my take is slightly different, which is we're confusing AI with the consumer products that we've been presented as AI. So ChatGPT is a consumer product. It's not AI. It has AI in it, but it's a consumer product, and so many of these are. So we are all trying to use this thing and trying to adapt it from a consumer product to putting it behind a media product, for example. Mm-hmm. And we're having to deal with all the stuff that these things don't do, like tell us the truth or all these wonderful things, right? So we're having to deal with all these things which are presented to us easily as a consumer product. So as companies, we need to do more and talk less. Right, sit there and think, well, let's actually, rather than 90% of the time speak about what we're going to do in AI, is actually get your sleeves up and start being, as you say, brave and start doing a few things, because the truth is out there. It's just difficult to find unless you're practicing.
Can I just quickly build on one of Kian's points? I think it's a really good attitude to have that you're way behind. Although I think the reality is, if you're even thinking about it in a serious way, you're probably not. I'm going to steal shamelessly a joke from someone, it may be one of you on the prep call even, but I do think, I really like this idea that AI is a bit like teenage sex. Everyone's talking about
definitely
it.
Definitely not my story.
Everyone's talking
I didn't say that. We're all denying it.
Everyone's talking about it. Far fewer people are doing it, and the people who boast about it the most are usually doing the least of it. Yeah. And I think there's like a lot of that in the market today.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Let's talk about the B word, which is the bubble. There's increasing comment, isn't there, that, here we go again, it's another bubble, we've been here before, it's about to burst. What's the reality of that? What are you guys seeing? Did you think the AI bubble is peaking? Matt?
I think this is where you just need to really try and take a historical perspective. I think often when people say there's an AI bubble, what they mean is they've seen a company or a project that's been allocated a ton of capital that they think is rubbish. And for sure there is that stuff happening. But the most famous technological bubble of the lifetimes of most people in this room was the dot-com bubble. And it was a truly absurd period of capital allocation. You look at some of the companies that were getting funded at the peak of the dot-com bubble, and you're just like, how could anyone have ever been so stupid as to do that? And yet, was it a bubble? Well, we got the internet, and turns out the internet was a pretty big deal. And what are the 5 most valuable companies in the world? They're internet companies. And so I think my guess is if you zoom out 20 years from now and you look back on the excesses of 2025, was it a bubble? Well, certainly there will be stuff that we funded, hopefully not me, that we're like, wow, that was truly insane. But my guess is the 5 biggest companies in the world will be AI companies, and we'll talk about AI at least as much as we talk about the internet today.
Some of the stories that I cover, the money that we talk about is eye-watering.
It is.
And I write these huge figures, and then I sit there and I can't actually even imagine that amount of money. Surely that's got to level out at some point. What do you think, Kian?
No, I think you could argue it's a bubble, but many people don't care that it's a bubble, because that's the model that venture capitalists are going in with. That we're going to invest in 10 companies, and 8 of them will fail, 1 of them will turn out pretty average, and 1 of them will pay for all 10, and plus, a lot more. Yeah. And if you are going in this bubble with this investment thesis, you don't care it's a bubble, because the 5 companies that are going to come out of it are going to pay for the bubble. And I think what you said is very true.
But let's put some numbers on it. You're right, Zoe, that this year, collectively, the big tech companies will invest about $500 billion in AI infrastructure. That's a lot of money. $500 billion is a lot of money. But if you think about what the AI companies are saying they'll be able to do by the end of the decade, there is an argument that we're under-investing in AI today. So knowledge work done by humans, like I would say almost certainly every single person in this room is a knowledge worker of kind. Knowledge work is worth about $50 trillion a year. $50 trillion a year. The AI companies, you might not believe them, but the AI companies are telling us and telling their investors that by the end of the decade, they'll be able to automate all knowledge work. Now, if that's true...
That's quite a claim.
It's quite a claim, but if it's true and they believe it's true, are we over-investing or under-investing in AI today? Arguably under-investing.
I don't know. See, I disagree with you. So I was here in Cambridge when the bubble burst, and the bubble bloody burst, because I was here, and it was nasty. So at the moment, there's way too much of this hype. We're going to talk about agents maybe later, where you got the CEOs of Salesforce coming out with bonkers numbers that they've just made up, because there's only way it's made up. So a normal human being building some agentic stuff is barely getting it to work, and at the same time, we're being told that apparently the world is gonna change, and none of us are gonna have any work. We're heading somewhere, and whether you call it a bubble or not doesn't matter. But we're heading somewhere where there's going to be a blip. And it's a blip of credibility from the whole world thinking the hype is enormously high. The truth might be quite high as well, but the average citizen looks at this and is in disbelief. Because in their personal life, they're using this stuff, which lies all the time. We've spent $1.5 trillion making these things, and we can't get them to stop lying.
Hallucinations, I think we call it.
Take a moment. 1.5 trillion, and we can't get them to stop lying. Now take a moment. So if you multiply this through all of this hype of work and this, and it's very difficult to distinguish, and it's such a heavy topic, because it's not a simple topic anymore, right? This is very hairy and very deep. Something's going to happen. That famous bump of disillusionment that the analysts call. So I don't know about the bubble. I do think we're going to create immense companies and incredible companies and monopolies again. And
do you think it's going to take a catastrophe?
The
you think something
consumers
very
are not going to
bad
get the
is
best out of this, but it's going to be some blip. What it takes, what it looks like, I don't know, but there's going to be a blip.
I think the biggest bubble we're going to run into is related to the workforce, because value will be created. We're seeing AI agents, they're failing a lot, but they're creating value in specialized areas. But at the end of the day, a company looks at having bought billions of dollars worth of AI software, and then they look at their people and they're like 5% are using it.
Yeah.
It works, but nobody's using it. And then you realize that what we used to say back in the days, that for every $1 spent on technology, you need $1 spent on people. That then got updated into $1 spent on technology, you need $3 on people. I think the truth is closer to $1 on technology, $10 on people. Otherwise, we're going to run into that bubble and we're going to have value creation with nobody using it to a certain extent.
I think part of the problem, part of the reason it feels like this is we just really lack consistent metrics to track progress. So early on, like 2 or 3 years ago, people designed a set of evaluations to see whether AI was smart. And the problem is that they were basically like multiple choice questions, and they're very hard ones that I certainly couldn't answer. And so like seeing that number go up was impressive, but very quickly they get them all right. And turns out, so one thing I look at very closely, and I encourage you to track closely, because I think it's the thing that feels like it maps most of the real world and it's harder to like tap out, is what's the longest task that you can delegate to an AI and have a reasonable expectation that it will complete it successfully? So there's an organization called METR, M-E-T-R, that tracks this and has a great index of this. And it particularly looks at the world of software engineering, which is probably the area where AI has had the biggest impact so far outside the consumer chatbots. Now, what METR have found is that honestly today, like although a lot of developers, a lot of programmers use AI, it's not that impactful. If a task, roughly a task that would take a human about 2 hours has a 50% chance of being completed successfully by an AI. So that's not that big, honestly. It's like a helpful tool, but it's not that big. The crazy thing that METR have found, though, is that number has consistently doubled every 7 months for the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. One thing I was fond of telling the Prime Minister in my last job was that there were still 6 doublings left before the next election. So if you double 2 hours 6 times, it's like one of those COVID charts, you get to a working month. Now, maybe something will break before then, but I think so far, betting on that curve, actually a world where you can delegate a working month of tasks to an AI is very different from one where you can delegate.
Can I challenge you just for fun?
Of course.
We're going to have a fight in these panels otherwise. So the same organization have come out with a study where they gave the same tool to a bunch of very good developers that were working on a very mature product who came into the experiment saying, I'm pretty sure this is going to give me 30% enhancement in my day, and it came out that it slowed them down by 30%.
Oh dear.
Which is the point that's being made here. So on one hand, you have this wonderful PR that is going to remove or help us do things. On the other hand, the same organization comes out with a bunch of research that says the opposite. Good luck to you all.
So let's reflect. Let's reflect on it. It sounds like we do need help. I mean, how do you cut through all this hype and decide, where to actually put your money? Because there are an awful lot of companies out there who want to take it off you, aren't there? What do you think?
Want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
There's a point of credibility here. So you're going to find entities, people, places that you're going to have trust with in the past that have served you well. Use those people, places, government, whatever that you do trust, because it's probably more important today that you trust people than anything else, point number one. Point number two is there's no longer now a situation where you and your company can ask what have others done with any form of faithfulness, everyone lies. Sorry, everyone exaggerates. We're in Cambridge and we're very nice. Everybody exaggerates. So don't think of that as your crux. Start practicing yourself. So trust people that you know well, that you know you can trust, and then do. It's the only way now. Be in the topic, evaluate, study, go deep. You cannot go shallow in AI and make any decision today. It is what it is.
Kian, do you see a lot of hype?
Yeah, I see it all the time. I think there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of exaggeration. And usually we would say, coming in from Silicon Valley, you can expect there's going to be AI in the background, but just focus on the problem you're trying to solve. And if you're actually solving a problem and you're looking at it from that perspective, you're probably making the right decision, investing dollars behind it, or pounds.
I think, yeah, I mean, both to answer that question and to reconcile for my perspectives on this, I think the thing that is still really lacking in AI is robustness. So, you know, I think if there's actually two different things that are going on at the same time. And I think when you start to look at it through these two different lenses, you realize if you look at it through one lens, you get the story I've been telling you. If you look at it through the other lens, you get the story that I've been telling you. Both are true. So on the one hand, what you can do now with AI at its peak is extraordinary. It's like really amazing, some of the stuff that you can do. One of the things I worked on with some of our defense and national security colleagues in government was this sort of beefed up version of this thing called GeoGuessr. So GeoGuessr is where you take a picture taken anywhere in the world, and then you have to guess the AI to guess where it was taken. And it's truly terrifying. Like, it's like a random intersection of some road somewhere in the world, and it gets it down to like within 10 meters of where it was. Incredible. The capabilities at peak are getting higher and higher and higher. However, exactly as Fer says, the robustness of that is really poor. Sometimes it just gets it wildly wrong. Sometimes it fails to delegate the task. Sometimes it hallucinates. And so you've got these two different things happening that if you can cherry pick the peak, it looks amazing. If you have to look at the average, it looks much less amazing. And so what's happening, I think, now, and to your question about where do you put the money, I think the place to put the money is reliability. And actually, I'm not an advert for Accenture, but you know, this is why we actually don't just need the model companies, the Anthropics and the OpenAIs, but we need the systems integrators who will come in and do the hard work of how do you actually put this into your business. And so what government needs too, by the way, is people to actually come in and make it work for them. Because I would say the first chart, the capabilities chart, has gone like this. The robustness chart is getting better, but it's a much less glamorous and exciting chart.
It's quite difficult for the companies to get right, isn't it? I was listening to a chat with someone from Anthropic not so long ago, and they were asked, next year, will an AI tool be able to do my tax return for me? And it said, absolutely, it will do it. You know, it will say, yeah, give me your figures. Here you are, here's your tax return. But it's probably not going to get it right. And so please don't get AI to do your tax returns next year. But, you know, I thought that was a really interesting admission that it's so keen to please, this technology is so keen to please, that it doesn't really mind that it can't deliver.
That's quite right.
Please don't use AI to do your tax returns.
You put it very well. So this is part of the problem. And within robustness, as it relates to companies, there's a lot of layers. It's how you govern the thing, how you train the thing, how you deal with it going. Can I give you a dumb example? If you're doing a little chatbot, and these things are, we love them because they're flexible, right? They're not 100% square, right? So we love the flexibility. But the day you put it out online, some lovely human is asking for advice for mental health. You say, well, I'm a chatbot that's trying to help you fill your tax return, so you're a bit of luck, and it answers in a very sensible way, and you've hopefully helped this individual. But you look back and the risk function says, what just happened? No, we can't do that. Actually, as a company, we have a way to answer this, blah, blah. Or maybe, now that you're asking this, what are all the other things human could ask so that I don't want you to answer? I don't know, anything and everything. Okay, that's not going to work. So here's what we're going to do. These are the 10 answers that you can give, period. So now you have a chatbot that does almost nothing anymore, zero flexibility.
I think I've encountered a few of those, actually.
So, but this kind of illustrates my point, which is we need to figure that out, and that is not a very sexy thing to do for these consumer companies. They just want to tell you that they now have a thing that is as clever as a PhD, but when I ask it to do something simple, it seems to fail. This is the challenge we have in companies, that we need to push these vendors to raise some of these functionalities and things to help us work this every day.
So with all that in mind, all of the caveats and all of the fact that we are talking about a technology that's in its infancy, And we're living it in real time. I had a bit of a row with someone online the other day because they were saying, you know, but why are we doing this? It's going to be terrible. And I said, but we don't know that. You know, we're on a path here. We're living it in real time. There's no evidence because we haven't got there yet. We're still getting there. If we never did anything new, we'd still be in caves, wouldn't we? But despite all of that, everyone is really keen to embrace it, to get involved, to try and harness it, to make it work for them. So what is the implication if businesses say, do you know what, this isn't for us, we're not going to do it? What happens if they miss this moment, do you think?
I can start. I've got a line that I always tell CEOs, and I will stick to it, which is that this is the only new game in town, period. Whatever you work in, all the playbooks have been played. You can do them better, you can do them worse, you can do this thing or that thing, it's slightly better, you can bring a new CEO and they can have a variation on the theme. This is the only new game in town at this minute. So you can either embrace it and find a path and do something, or you can sit and watch others recreate the game, and you're just going to be watching. It terrifies them, and they do weep a bit.
You just scare them into it.
But I think that's absolutely true, no matter how I feel about the challenges and the journey, which are also true.
Yeah, I think you're exposing yourself to a slow death, essentially, as a company, and it might be invisible. You're going to start seeing talent leave because they're feeling that you're not investing in their future, and they're probably going to lose their job at some point if they don't have the AI skills or the skills of the future that they need to have to be productive at work. And I think that's what's going to happen in the next few years. You're going to see the companies that have adopted it fully and are sprinting constantly, a set of companies that are trying, and a set of companies that are undergoing a slow death over time.
Matt?
I think this is one of the things that I worry about most at a macro level for the UK is when I was in government, we did this study on which countries stood to benefit most from AI and which were most vulnerable. And you can tell a very optimistic story about the UK where actually, if you look at which of the sectors that we have in this country that are the engines of economic growth, they're actually the ones that will be transformed by AI the most, or maybe the earliest. We're already seeing that in life sciences, which are big UK strength. We're seeing it in media, which we're obviously here to talk about today. We're seeing it in financial services. These are like UK strengths. The problem is these are all also service and export businesses. And so I think there is a huge macroeconomic vulnerability for the UK. When we did this study, what we found was that there were more jobs exposed to near-term automation, we can debate what near-term means, in the UK than in any other OECD economy. And unfortunately, I think we kid ourselves because we have some good tech firms that the UK is good at tech. We're good at creating tech. We're actually probably the worst adopter of tech in the G7. We're the slowest to adopt new tech.
Why?
And so there is potentially a perfect storm coming for the UK where financial services is transformed by AI, life sciences is transformed by AI, but our FS firms and our life sciences firms are slower to adopt than their international competitors, and we just lose share over time. And I think that actually is arguably the default, and one we need to push back against really hard. And so, I would argue that like the answer to your question, Zoe, is not only, as the guys said, at a firm level, is this a long, slow death? I think it could be a long, slow death for the engines of our economy. And I don't think that's inevitable, by the way. I'm a real optimist about the UK. I think there is so much we can do to be an AI winner. That's why I sort of ruined my life for a year trying to make that happen. But I think we should be really clear that by default, that's not where we're going to end up.
I want to do a quick fire round here. So quick answers, quick questions. One example of a company or a person who's using AI successfully, and what is it that they're doing right? Kian.
There are many. I was going to say my mom fixes the Wi-Fi on her own now, thanks to ChatGPT.
Love it. We'll have that.
Might be the best example. I would say companies, and I would refer to a group that start by answering the question, where do we stand? Quick answer, or can I do a minute?
A quick minute.
So it turns out in learning, AI can help you learn a lot. So it turns out that the main bottleneck in learning is not the content anymore that you're going to learn, is the self-awareness of knowing where you stand. If you actually are aware of your unknown unknowns, you are in a better place to close your gaps than if you're not aware of your unknown unknowns and you have millions of hours of content sitting here in front of you. And so I think those who understand that are more likely to transform faster.
Matt?
I think like one thing I'm really optimistic about is the use of ambient scribes in healthcare. So doctors, nurses, other medical professionals spend a ton of their time writing up notes, writing up discharge papers. To first point about AI's lying, humans also lie inadvertently. The accuracy of these things is actually very poor. You can replace this with ambient scribes that listen and dictate. The doctor still signs them off. We have a company, an EF company called Tortoise that does this that I think is going to be amazing. And I think this is like one of the very practical ways that AI can transform the NHS.
Fernando?
I've got two super quick ones. One is life sciences and medical trials. They are literally killing it, and they're doing it for the right reasons, and it'll benefit all of us. They're spectacular. It's very process-orientated. It's really helpful. And then a shout-out to my friend Azim Azar. Do you know Azim? He's a wonderful human, and he is the Jedi of using this for productivity of him and the people around him in ways spectacular. So those are two for me.
What are your no regrets moves? What's the things that you've done that you're so glad that you took a chance on? To do with AI, I hasten to add.
I think like for me, the easiest no regrets move is just use it more yourself. Like I'm amazed, I won't name the firm, but I was asked by a very well-known international consulting firm to come and give a talk on AI to their senior partners. And you know, like one by one, they stood up and told these tales of woe about how their business is going to be automated and you know all these difficult things, these existential challenges. And I was like, cool, hands up if you use ChatGPT or an equivalent at least once a week. And to be fair, about 80% of them did. I was like, once a day, and it goes down to about 20%. Like 10 times a day, it goes down to like none. Like, yes, these things are not perfect, but I honestly think if you're serious about AI might change your business, you just got to use it all the time. I use ChatGPT probably 100 times a day. I think you've got to treat it like a second brain. And I think that's a no regrets move. Like, if you know what it can do and what it can't do, that is going to equip you to be both a user and a consumer and an investor in the corporate sense in AI, better than reading any number of like, you know, industry reports.
Kian?
For me, it was unnatural. As a manager, I tend to try to empower people and let them figure things out. And a year ago, probably, I forced people to do certain things. And one of them was learn AI. And I'm top-down making a mandate, making people very uncomfortable. And people were fuming inside the organization of like, why are you forcing me to do all these things? It's so annoying. I have so many other things to do. But if I had to redo it, I would do it even if it's unnatural to me, to be that top-down. And I think the leaders who are using this forcing function to help people adopt are going to be better off, their organizations are going to be better off in the future, even if it hurts on the short term and it creates a ton of chaos in organizations. So
do you think sort of create space almost within everybody's working day?
Yeah.
Say, you know, take 10 minutes every single day, think about something and ask a chatbot to help you? Or...
I think you have one category of organizations where organic adoption of behaviors and business process automation is going to come naturally. And you have a lot of organizations who need someone to break things. And unless someone is going in and breaking things, literally stopping the entire business for a set period of time to reinvent it, is needed. And if it's not happening yet, it's going to hurt on the long run.
Mm. There's a danger that we all agree, because actually you'll see in the pattern, it's using. So if you're not using, you don't have a voice, I'm sorry, because you're making shit up. But I'm going to give you a different one just for color. 2026 is the year of bring your own AI. So all of your employees will bring their own AI. Why? Because you're not giving them the one they want. Not because they want a brand or something. You're not fulfilling their cup of need. So listen to them. Listen to them, and then they'll be using it inside your company, and you'll be better off.
I sometimes feel like I talk to people about AI, and they think it's like a Christmas present. You know, when you unwrap a present, and it looks really cool, but it hasn't got an instruction book with it, and you don't quite know what to do with it. And you don't want to ask anyone, because you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing. What what's your advice to people in that situation who are keen but don't really know where to start?
It's a tough one. So this is the first technology in human history that has no manual and will have no manual, and we don't know what it does, and the people that make him don't know what it does. But it's the most human technology. But it's the most human technology we've ever had. So my advice is just engage. Just engage. You always have questions. We're curious. Engage in questions. Yeah. We always have tasks. Engage in tasks. Just engage.
And I think creating the environment where risk-taking is okay makes a big difference. And I think because we're talking about the media industry here, you look at workforces that are pretty large and are trying to be on trend and fast, and you can't really keep up unless your people are organically using all these tools and incorporating them. And so your competitor is sort of the indie game developer or the individual content creator that literally uses 20 AI tools to get their content out within 10 minutes. And the reason they can do it is because they can take risks, they're safe, they're in control of what they do. And so if organizations can't provide that to their employees, they're probably going to, again, go through a slow death over time. And I'm not saying for every type of content you would do that, but there is a good chunk of content where speed is of the essence, that you need to provide that safety to employees to try things. And then there's the credibility side, which is longer run cycles, where you might get away with a more traditional process.
I think it's one of those quite humbling things where you realize, like, these things are now so powerful to me, like the personal chatbot that you can use, that we're much more limited by our own imagination in what to ask it than we are in the capability of the machine. And it's a little bit like, to go back to the internet, there was a lot of talk rightly about how the internet would democratize content creation. And actually, as we heard over the panels earlier this morning, it's true, it did happen. But almost no one does it as a percentage of the population. Like, almost no one actually creates and uploads, YouTube videos or writes a blog or whatever. Like, yeah, in absolute terms, it's a lot. As a percentage, it's really small. Because actually, the bottleneck was probably not actually the gatekeepers. The bottleneck was creativity and agency and ambition. And my guess is, in the era of AI, the bottleneck will still be creativity and agency and ambition. And you're going to need to know what you want to ask it. But I would say one thing. It's true it doesn't have a manual. On the other hand, it can talk to you. I always say to people, if you really want to use AI and you're not sure what to use it for, ask it. What should I be using you for? It'll tell you. It might not be right, but it will be eager to please.
And I would say we don't know everything about the competencies that are needed for the future, but we have a good sense of what are the perishable competencies that we're going to learn today and are going to go away in 3 months, but are still needed to innovate, and what are the durable competencies, AI fluency, cultural intelligence, knowing what's going to land, and then editorial bar, let's say, for this industry. I think those we know are durable skills that are still going to be valuable 10 years from now.
I've got one more question. We are running out of time, so we'll have to be brief. But I really want to ask you quickly about recruitment. When you're hiring people, are you looking specifically for AI-savvy people? Is that part of the recruitment process now? I see some job adverts which say, don't use an AI tool to apply. And I think, well, why not? Don't you want people to show that they can use it? Is it seeping through, do you think, at that level?
Well, at Workera, I'd say everyone who joins the company passes a set of AI assessments to test their AI at different levels. AI literacy, understand AI fluency, apply AI, and if you're an engineer, build AI. Can you do these things? Everybody. And then on top of that, we always check for learning mindset. Some people call it insatiable curiosity or growth mindset. But it comes with the interview process, including questions like, what did you learn in the last 3 months? Can you explain it to me? What is your learning strategy to keep up with progress as things are moving so fast and the half-life of skill is reducing? All of that is now embedded completely in the recruitment process.
I'm currently recruiting for a CEO at ARIA, which is the Advanced Research and Invention Agency. So it's sort of a little bit like DARPA for the UK. And deep in CEO interviews right now. And the one that actually impressed me most so far was I said, what sorts of programs do you think we should be running that we're not doing now? And the candidate said, well, I scraped the entire ARIA website using AI, put it into context, and then asked it this question, and this is what it told me. And I was like, this is great. Like,
You didn't think it was cheating?
no, I mean, it's exactly what we should be doing. Like, it would be, to me, it'd be like praising a candidate because they used a carrier pigeon rather than email. Like, I don't crave an AI-free world, and I don't crave AI-free candidates.
We are going to have to leave it there. I could talk to you all day. Thank you so much. I just need to thank my panel, Matt Clifford, Kian Katanforoosh, and Fernando Lucini. Thank you for joining me.